anything else that, so right, sorry about that. So I have a follow-up question on that. So there is an attendee question that has asked, I'll put it to both you and Sajjan ji. So someone has asked that, isn't this an overhead for employees at the lower level, right? How do you manage accountability there? Given that it's not a top-down approach, how do you make sure that, you know, person who is there in the store is made accountable for that? I would want you to go first, Sajjan ji, if you would like to share anything on that.
Vaibhav, would you like to? You want me to go first or Sajjan?
Right. So anyone can go first.
Yeah, Ujjawal, you can start. No problem.
Okay. Thanks. So, see, in case if you are talking about accountability, then I think obviously if we are making a store manager the responsible person of the store, I think he's accountable for all the hygiene of the store. And, you know, making a Wooqer checklist doesn't need to be a pressure on them or an extra process on them, because it essentially helps them in reminding whatever they have to do at the store. So in case if you are adding a question that they have to maintain the basic hygiene, or they have to go as per the VM guidelines, that is just a help to them. Essentially, they'll be going through the Wooqer checklist and they'll be reading the question that, yes, I have to do this, I forgot to do this, but this is also important as part of my store accountability. So that is also, you know, one of the part. And as I was talking about, that we go with both the approaches. We go with, you know, making it as a report as well, and involving them as well. So there are some scorecards in case if they don't, you know, reach out to the expectation that should be as a brand or as an organization. I think anybody would be, you know, agreeing with this, that in case if Lenskart store is not is dirty or is, you know, not serving the customers in a very good manner, then I think there's no point of having a store manager at that store. So obviously, then if we see a continuous trend wherein the store is not good in terms of Wooqer compliance or any compliance, we take disciplinary actions like, you know, holding on to incentive or something that every you know, company makes. So I think that is essential for everybody to, you know, make the brand reach, or, you know, have a certain level of standard maintained all across the globe.
Right. Thank you, Ujjwal, for sharing that. Sajjan, would you also want to?
See, largely what he has said is aligned more or less, I would say. To add on what Ujjwal is saying, accountability is always important in terms of whenever you are giving a big responsibilities to the store managers, wherein entire store, all the customers, all the employees, they go up to store manager and ask us about their performance, their progress. They are also answerable to that as well. So largely they have to also showcase that yes, their stores, their customers are happy, their experience are to the level best. So there they need to even showcase, okay, yes, this is what we have implemented, this is what we have worked upon, and that is how the customer experience have improved. So all these checklists, all these templates, all these compliances, largely we intend to at least ensure in terms of the VM compliances, or in terms of the hygiene of the stores, or in terms of the customer experience. Those are the larger picture, I would say. So obviously they are accountable for that as well, and that is what improves your sales end of the day. That's what ensures, okay, there is lesser of a retention in terms, lesser of a attrition at the store level, or different levels altogether. Apart from the accountability of the store managers, there are also people above them, like the regional managers, the area managers, who are also accountable, who do a regular visit to the stores, who also ensures, okay, just filling up the checklist and giving a tick mark wouldn't help. They, even at the grassroots level, they need to go and see the real problems, are they getting resolved or not. So that is also getting rooted to the hierarchy, I would say. So store managers and the regional managers, and then it comes to the HODs and the central ops team, who takes care and drive these elements every day and day out. And when we talk about few processes, what he has highlighted, similarly, we also follow a lot of daily processes and weekly and monthly processes. This helps in closing activities, opening activities, and at various level, be it finance team, be it your admin department, be it the stores, the retail team. So these are, so when you start managing 100 plus stores or 150 stores, how do you come across to bring a uniformity or to bring a sync in the data and the informations all across. This is how you do it, right? And in case any of the stores are not filling up those checklists or not complying, we at least come to know, okay, there are some issues. Maybe there are lack of resources, or maybe there is some connectivity issues, or maybe they're not able to fill up because of XYZ reasons, that we need to reach out to them and get this resolved. So largely it's a bigger picture is customers experience, why we get this SOPs implemented, right? So we have to we have to hold them accountable. But yes, it's kind of like more forming part of your KPI, I would say, going along. How do you monitor them, their performance? This is how we do it.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Sajjan, for sharing that. One more question before we try and summarize this and move on to Sarika. Couple of questions actually. First, what do you think is the best way to train the team on SOPs? Second, how frequently should the compliance matrices be measured? Is there any metric in doing it quarterly, weekly, monthly, or otherwise? Open to ideas. So Sajjanji, if you could take that first, and then I'll come to you.
So one is what you asked me about what is the best way to train the team in SOPs, right?
Right.
I've already explained in terms of training the team in SOPs. One has to be very clear what we intend to implement through these SOPs. The intention has to be very clear. If we have a example, I would put it like, if we have an intention that all the registrations, example I'm putting, say vendor registration has to be centralized, driven centrally, right? So intent is clear from the management side. Okay, it has to be centrally driven. What is the outcome and how will it help? That's all. That's clear, right? Our data management would be great, and there would not be much of a duplicity. And parallel, there would be various checks in terms of the audit checks, I would say, when we are registering any of the vendors. One such example, right? So when we talk about those implementation and how do we do it, if possible, design some manuals, simple flowcharts, some sort of simple flowcharts, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, with some sort of an escalation. Very simple, crisp to understand. But yes, we have to test it before we go and make them implemented. And when we talk about training, the training has to be regular. Again, when we are saying regular, if it's an employee who is onboarded, let it be trained at that time, which we do it very regularly. We also provide them a to-do list. We provide them all the processes with a to-do list. These are the activity has to be done daily, weekly, etc. We share with them so that they are well aware with that. And parallelly, the module element which is there. So whenever they get time, they can download and they can at least view and get those trainings from there. And on the job training, so junior guys or senior guys going and teaching them, the regional team members going and teaching them. Whenever they get opportunity, open house trainings, that has to be arranged and get it done. Simple to start with. You are on mute.
Sorry about that. Right. And how often do you think we should track these compliance metrics? Is there any merit in doing it monthly or quarterly or any other frequency?
See, it depends on the frequency. If there is not much of a change in the process, no, and the users are same, you can do it on an annual basis. It again depends on the frequency of the process which you have designed. Okay, if there is a change, you update about the changes, the variance of the changes, why this change has occurred, and what is the new thing which has been taken care of. Any employee joining for the first time, that has to be trained, and then we can plan for a quarterly or a half yearly sort of a training. And always they are free enough to ask questions to the central operations teams whenever they are filling up the forms or in the processes. They can come back and ask. That's an open forum which they have. They can just put up a call, they can drop mail or drop a text, and they can ask the queries. That's how we are open there to support.
Right. Thank you, Sajjanji, for sharing that. Ujjwal, is there anything that you would like to add to that? Same two questions. Best way to train the team on SOPs, and second, how do you think, what's the ideal time to measure compliance metrics?
So similar to what Sajjan said, because we have a lot of users, we practically make sure that all the stores are covered. So we ensure that a guide is made around this, and a guide includes everything, overall process, which even includes the images, so that it can be an attractive slide for them to have a look at the guide, and they can just have a clear image at whatever they need to do. Apart from that, initiating training calls and everything. And around that, we even add sometimes some random questions wherein we want to check whether the people are at the store are aware about the answers or not, and whether in this condition what needs to be done. And simultaneously we use other learning softwares as well, like LMS and everything, to go through them to make sure that they are completing it. So I think that for the first question, I think that will be all. And for the second question, I think it totally depends upon the process. There are several processes wherein you need to check on daily basis, and there are several processes which even quarterly if you check, then I think it will be fine. So I'll just take an example and go make sure that everybody gets it. So in case like we were talking about the VM guidelines, it should be in place every day. So that needs to be checked every day. A weekly report should be shared around it. But if we talk about the other thing that I was just sharing was like the GSC certificate. Once it is pasted outside the store, I think nobody intentionally will be removing it. So I think we can do a check around it after 2 months. So it totally depends upon the process. Like Sajjan said, that it we need to check it on need basis. There are some processes that will be requiring to ask the team to check it on daily basis. We need to ensure that it is in place and everything around hygiene is in place. And there are some processes or some compliances where even after a month or 2 months we check. I think it will be overall good for us. Only the new stores that we'll be adding, we need to check them only for the time being.
Right. Thank you for sharing that, Ujjwal. Ujjwal, if I were to, ask you to summarize everything that you have shared in 3 points, how do we drive SOP compliance? Can you do that? Give us 3 pointers that we can take out from this discussion.
Sure. So, first of all, as I said that, just rules are important, but organizational values are far more reliable way to influence behavior. So I think the first point will be this only, that we need to emphasize more on, importance of doing the right thing, and the chances of becoming or maintaining it becomes greater. So I think the first point will be this. The second point will be, taking feedbacks and brainstorming with the team itself or with the leaders, because right now, even if I talk about the leaders only, we have somewhere around 80 to 85 area managers. So in case if we make sure that they are, aware about the process, they know why we are doing this, then I think essentially they'll be happy to make it, to drive it at the store level as well. So I think the second point will be around the visibility for the compliance, that why we need it, and it should be clear to every employee so that they drive it. And the third point will be, somewhat that we should, use both the approaches that I said, that in case if only just driving the compliance doesn't help, then we should uh, connect it with different parameters like incentives and everything, so that at the end of the day, maintaining a standard for a international brand is also important. And it is obviously a store manager's accountability, like we said, that to ensure a store is done, and same goes for the area manager and same goes for the zonal manager. And at the end of the day, it is not our duty to highlight anything, it is our duty to get it rectified. So as I said that getting the feedback is the most important thing. So we should always be open to feedback before uh, ensuring or before launching a new SOP across the brand. I think these will be the points that I would say.
Thank you, Ujjwal, for sharing that. Sajjan ji, can you also try and summarize it in 3 points?
Largely for SOPs, I would say PPT. That's a 3-word. P is for people, another P is for process, and third is the technology. So whenever we are designing in SOPs or ensuring its compliances, we have to ensure in terms of the flow, it is taking care of the people accountable for it, the approval levels and everything. It's a people side of it, which also includes ensuring, okay, the users are given limited, given with the valued informations, what they are adding in terms of adding the processes or filling up those checklists and all. Limited informations, they need to capture it, so they don't find it tedious, too much of a data requirements that has to be ensured in terms of people, I would say. Process, when we talk about, let's define the process, not in the Wooqer template immediately, but yes, brainstorming at the back end, at the drawing board once before we put anything on the record. So let's brainstorm that, how we can simplify things. That's the process side. And then comes the technology wherein Wooqer as an enabler can help us wherever required in terms of data uploading, capturing the photographs, geolocation taggings. Okay, these are the few elements which we need to be taken care, and communications, reportings, those things have to be taken care in terms of the implementation of the SOPs and ensuring its compliances. Three simple word, PPT.
Thank you for putting it that way, Sajjan ji. Okay, so again, let's. I'm sure you all know Ms. Sarika Pandey. Sarika is also here with us. For a lot of customers, Wooqer is synonymous with Sarika. She's the Chief Customer Officer here. She is an AIMS and FMS Delhi alumnus, and she was an Associate Vice President at Kotak Mahindra Bank before Wooqer. At Wooqer, she's partnered with 100 plus retail and QSR organizations and has the exposure to some of the best practices across industries, right? And practices that have delivered outcomes for companies. So Sarika, welcome to the webinar. So late, but nevertheless.
Yeah. So for me, this whole SOP compliance, so when we started at Wooqer, every single company I would talk to would say, what about adoption? And through the early customers, at least the first 20, 30 customers, I said, much pe chhod do. So I used to take responsibility for that and say, ki, I'll figure it out. You don't worry. But honestly, I've never found the challenge with adoption. Matlab, I used to find it so easy. I used to wonder, why are these people talking about adoption all the time? Adoption doesn't seem to be a problem out there. And I think there was a formula behind that, not being from technology, not being from operations. It probably just came a little, being a salesperson, more importantly, it came a little naturally to me. Because for me, it was not just the company that was buying Wooqer, it was every single user in every single store who was buying Wooqer. And I was looking at how do I, how do I make that initiative successful for that one guy? And how do I make this valuable for that one guy? So I just want to share that formula that I have found working, at least for me. And when I'm saying me with these 20, 30 companies that I have personally partnered with, and many more where I have seen them adopting this formula. And it is a very, very effective formula. And it has a few stages. The first stage is before the launch, communicate, over communicate. Have the senior people get on a video, talk to the teams, explain to them with all their passion, with all their belief, without going through layers and diluting the message in the process. What's in it for you as an individual and what's in it for us as an organization? Why this is the foundation of everything that we are going to be doing. Because scale is all about SOPs, as Vaibhav said right in the beginning. And I think Lenskart is a live example of that. The kind of scale that Lenskart is operating at wouldn't be possible if it were not for those underlying SOPs and the compliance to that. And it's not about Wooqer, honestly. Wooqer is just incidental. It just happens to be the tool you may be using. But SOP compliance is the core. My SOP is the DNA of my brand, and I need to make sure that every outlet abides by that. Because if they don't, nothing will happen this month. Nothing may happen this quarter either. This is not one of those things where if I slip, next month sales will get impacted or this month sales will get impacted. But 6 months down the line, it may be so badly impacted, it may be too late to do anything about it. And thus it's important to have it up there on the radar in the kind of business we are in. And make sure to begin with that everyone understands why it is so important that we do this. Why, even though my managers may every day only question me about sales numbers and conversion numbers and some of your top KPIs, why it is important that I do take out that little time every single day to make sure my SOP compliance is always up to the mark, because it's a compounding factor that happens if I slip. The second is during a change management, there is always some nudge required. People won't get more salary for doing this. So it is important that we have some amount of recognition, at least if not reward, that comes in. In many organizations, there is also a reward, that there are actually financial incentives that are linked to this part of their KPI and the SOP compliance scorecard, as Ujjwal has mentioned, or as I'm sure Sajjan, you are also doing. That score goes on to becoming a part of the top KPIs. And there is a weightage against that KPI for my team. And when that happens, automatically it becomes part of my performance appraisal. And when that happens, the accountability has already shifted. And I've always used this language, for the people at the head office, getting others to do their job cannot be a job, should not be a job. My job should be to find ways to build accountability so everyone does their job without me having to push them. And that only happens when I bring it into their KPIs. But of course, if I may not be ready to bring it into their KPIs, then the next best option is at least recognize. Make them feel special for having done it, create some amount of FOMO. And there will be these early adopters who need to be recognized, and then the late bloomers who need to feel that FOMO, that everyone else seems to be doing it, I'm getting left behind, and I may be missing out on something, or I may lose business, or I may have business impact. So it's important to have that happening on the communication front. The third and the most effective one is make it fun. Change is never easy, especially when it is work, and especially for people at stores who often tend to be like, morning to evening, they're standing there doing a whole lot of things, taking a whole lot of, it may seem like, there is not much happening, but a lot of them feel very stressed out. And, in store visits, people have said, "Ma'am, 13 ghante khade rehte hain, पैरों पे बैठने को भी नहीं मिलता." So they do feel stressed out in a way, in their own way. So making it fun and creating opportunities for them to engage the brand is a guaranteed win. And if you start with that before bringing in your SOPs, you are always likely to get great results. And if you are doing that month on month on month on month in the same tool where SOP compliance is happening, everything else is easy. And simple things like running a selfie contest. If you have launched a new season, launch a contest around the look of the season, and have a parallel form, just like you have the SOP checklist, have a parallel form where you're asking, okay, submit your picture, submit a video, run a talent hunt, run some cricket quiz, if a World Cup or some IPL and all are going on. But find reasons, find ways for them to use the same tools and and go to destinations that they have, whether it be Wooqer or in the future something else. But if they are using it for their SOPs, also bring some elements of fun. Because then what happens is that it is no longer something that I hate because it's work. It is something that's a mixed bag. It is also bringing me value because it sometimes recognizes me. It is also bringing me value because there is learning material here. It is also bringing me value because I'm having fun here. I'm engaging with the brand. I'm engaging with others in the organization. So find ways, find opportunities for them to have a little fun. It may seem like, it's a distraction, but believe me, it has had amazing business impacts. With one company where we partnered with bringing some fun activities on Wooqer, and we did a series of 2 activities. There was a talent hunt that ran for a month, where 200 store submissions came in with their own gigs getting submitted. And the second was an IPL, IPL tournament that ran, which was running on sales numbers. So they had number of runs for number of deals, and chakkas and chaukas were essentially wow bills above rupees 50,000 kind of things. And with those numbers getting converted and the same platform being used for publishing some of that information, discussing some of those successes, and recognizing some of those people, we saw a 10% increase in the average sales, which was the highest this brand had had in almost 30 months. And we saw a 50% drop in attrition during the period. So these things may seem like they are a distraction and it doesn't add to business, but they do. They add more to business than the actual day-to-day pushing for sales or the area manager going and driving sales. So that's the third point. The fourth point is it's very important to review and take action and plan for that in advance. So a lot of companies tell me, yeah, they submit the checklist, but then nothing happens. If nothing happens, then they'll stop submitting the checklist someday. Because if I didn't submit the checklist one day and nothing happened, I will slip again. And if I keep slipping and I realize nothing ever happens, I'll stop bothering one day. Because no one is looking, no one is checking. And a lot of companies, it's surprising, But despite the fact that there is an operations head whose primary role and the primary goal is, or the primary tool rather, is to ensure that SOPs are being abided by, and yet in a lot of companies I see that that review and action doesn't take place. That if a non-compliance happened, what happened after that? Did someone get on it? Was it resolved? Or did the area manager have a conversation about it? Is that the area manager even see that there was a non-compliance? Did the area manager even know that there was no submission today? So my area managers being on top of it and my head office being on top of it is a definite necessity for it to actually end up to building accountability. The easiest way is to publish that scorecard, as Ujjawal was saying, that if you are doing a monthly scorecard, and I would recommend at least a monthly scorecard because it takes care of everything that is happening at different periodicities. And some elements may come in once a quarter, but they should ideally be at least a once a month look at SOPs. They deserve that kind of attention. And the last but not the least of my 5 points is create some amount of competitiveness. So this was a lesson I learned from one of my, one of the early companies we worked with, and the process excellence head there, managing a network of 1,500 stores. A very simple thing he gave was आपस में बढ़ा दो. So all you had to do was, once a month when you're publishing the scorecard, just publish who are the top regions, who are the top area managers, and that's it. Everything else they'll take care of. No one wants to be at the bottom of the list. And if the guy at the bottom of the list moves to the top of the list or somewhere higher up, the bar is already risen. And that's a very simple, very, very simple methodology to make sure my area managers start playing a bigger role. If there is a recognition happening for the ones who are at the top, the ones at the bottom will work harder to get out of there. And if that's part of that monthly review, that who's number one. And that ranking is, when you are doing that internal discussion in that meeting, saying who's number one is important. Because if I don't say that, half the value, half the juice is lost. So for me, from my point, these are the 5, tenets. One, pre-communication, change communication, and explaining what's in it for you, what's in it for the organization at large, why this is important. Building that sensitivity. Second, reward and recognition to make sure that the early adopters are recognized and the late bloomers develop a sense of FOMO, making it fun all the time, not just at start, but continuing to have some fun around that. It could be in context of that compliance only. It could be as simple as, like at Mahindra Retail, there was this program called Parak. And that is one of the, for me, that was an eye opener when I saw that program running. Parak was an SOP audit being run by the finance team of all teams, not even operations. It was one of those excruciating, hateable experiences for any company. Then I have to go through an audit that finance is going to run on all stores. But they made it so much fun and they created so much excitement around it. And they went on to, recognizing the people who came up on top. They talked about the things that are going to change because of that. And people started asking next quarter, ki sir, agla kab hoga? Stores asking. And the finance team was like surprised, why would a store say audit me? But they made it so much fun that stores actually, instead of resisting it, started demanding it. Give me more. And that's the kind of experience I'm talking about. And I've seen so many of that I find it very surprising when someone says that I'm struggling with adoption. Adoption is not a problem. The only thing is to play it right and make it fun for them. If they are having fun, adoption will not be a problem at all. So, for us at the head office to adopt some of these best practices is the key rather than my stores will adopt. If I create value for them, if I make it fun for them, every amount of work they do.
Right. Thank you, Sarika, for sharing that. I'll quickly summarize it for all the participants. Driving through values, taking feedback via managers, having an incentive plan in place to reward people. Sajjan puts it as PPT, people, process, technology. Sarika says over communicate the value, recognize and reward, make it a part of their KPIs, make it fun. Somebody has to review it and take action, and also have a sense of competitiveness around it. I hope I was able to summarize it. Like, would anyone like to add anything? Any panelists? Something that I might have missed?
So I believe Sarika has added a lot of pointers to it. Well summarized by you, Vaibhav. I think overall the best part what I feel like it's making things look easy and it's fun. Fun is that element so that people are more pro to this processes. They don't feel hesitant about adopting it. That's the key part of it. Let's make it more enjoyable, more fun oriented.
Right,
That's the best part. And she's rightly put it those points in place.
right. People loving audits is I've never heard of. So if you could make it that, then I see no reason why it will not be driven.
So whether you look audit as a fault finding activity or whether it you find to improve over it, that's the key part I would say.
Right,
If you believe in we can improve on the audit observations or the findings, that's important. It's
right,
always to improvise.
right. Thank you, Sajjan. Anything Ujjwal, Sarika, you would like to add before we end this?
I think Sarika has covered everything and great points, and some of the points that as Sarika said, even we'll be taking it into consideration. Thanks a lot, Sarika, for building it, and thanks Sajjan even for because most at most level I think we both are doing the same things, and which basically essentially is why we both are here. So I think that is the main point, and thanks Sarika and thanks Weber for putting it together. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, all the participants. Thank you, our esteemed panel, for joining in. We'll see you the next
Thanks.
week.
Thanks, Ujjwal. Thanks, Sarika. Thanks for all the participation being handed over. Well conducted, Vaibhav. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.